This is page 21 in our notes. We're using black and red for the colors. This is a continuation of standard NS.1 on dividing fractions, and now we're going to work into dividing mixed numbers. So the standard NS1 need to be able to divide mixed numbers and divide fractions. This is actually going to be 21 and 22 in our notes, so we're going to jump right into some examples. If I take 3/4 and I want you to divide by 1 and 1/2, I do feel like this is important to write this sideways. We talked about before how this one stays the same, and instead of dividing by 1 and 1/2, we need to multiply by its reciprocal. Well, first off, you don't know what its reciprocal is until you change this to a mixed number. I like to use the check mark method, 1 times 2 and add 1. Some people use the backwards C. So whatever works for you to make this into an improper fraction. 1 times 2 is 2, plus 1 is 3. Over 2. Now I like to write it just to the side, so instead of using this number I want to use that. So here's where this changes. 3/4 stays the same, but instead of dividing by 3/2, I need to multiply by its reciprocal, which is 2/3. An error that students often make is they write this 3/2. When they do the check mark, they write it right here, and they're trying to multiply by 3/2. And what happens is that they didn't flip it and do the reciprocal, and they're actually multiplying by this improper fraction. So now you're ready to simplify and multiply, and I can see that the 3's can both become 1's by dividing them both by 3. Dividing both by 3 and I get 1, and the 2 and 4 can both be simplified down by dividing both by 2. Divide both by 2, and that gives us a 1, and that gives us a 2. I always cross out the numbers once I've used them, and I circle the ones I need. That just makes it easy for me to see. 1 times 1 on the top is 1. 2 times 1 on the bottom is 2. And my answer is 1/2. So what's important to remember with mixed numbers? A couple stars in our notes over here, please. You need to do the check mark, or I don't know, some people call it the backwards C method. Whichever method works for you to change the mixed number into a improper fraction, and those are my abbreviations for mixed number to improper fraction. And then it's important, a couple stars here, to remember to flip to multiply by its reciprocal. So this is important. A lot of people don't flip it to its reciprocal when they're multiplying. They try to multiply just the improper fraction. So you change the mixed number to improper fraction, and then you need to remember to take the 3/2 and flip it to 2/3. So let's do some examples of those. The next example is 2 3/5. You're going to divide by 1 and 8/9. Notice I'm taking up 2 lines for my whole number so that each of my fractions can be aligned by itself. So in this case, both of these are mixed numbers, so we have to change both mixed numbers to improper. And I would like to write them right outside, because the moment you start writing them down, you'll forget to flip the second one. So I like to write them outside. So 2 times 5 is 10 plus 3. So this one is 13/5. 1 times 9 is 9, plus 8, that's 17/9. Remember, my denominators is where I'm getting the denominators. So now I'm just looking at 13/5 divided by 17/9. All I did was change these to improper. So the 13/5 stays the same, 13/5. Instead of dividing by 17/9, I need to multiply by its reciprocal, which is 9/17. Simplify and multiply. Unfortunately, none of these numbers simplify, and they're kind of large numbers, so I'll help you with the math. 13 times 9 on the top is going to give us 117. 5 times 17 on the bottom gives us 85. And this is improper, so we need to take the 117 and divide by 85, and I'll help you with the math again. 85 goes into 117 one whole time. That gives me 85. And when I subtract here, I end up with 32 as my remainder. So when I make a fraction bar, 32 goes on the top over the 85 I was dividing by. 1 and 32 over 85ths is your answer. That's kind of the interesting numbers there. So what's important when I have two mixed numbers to remember? I think it's important that you remember this guy right here. You have to remember to flip that 17/9 over here to 9/17. That's the one that people forget to flip because there's so much work involved in this problem. The next thing I want to put in our notes is story problems, because there will be a story problem on your study guide and a story problem on your test, and I want you to be able to understand story problems for fractions. So I'm going to label it dividing fraction story problems. And a lot of times people just struggle with story problems in general, so the way we get better at them is just by doing more of these. So lots of stars in our notes here because this is going to be on your test. So dividing fraction story problems. When we are dividing, remember I was telling you at the beginning when we started NS1, you're always going to have a total, and you're going to have to divide it by, I'm going to call it a part or even like a piece. And then your answer is always going to answer how many parts or pieces are in that total. So I'm going to write it as how many parts or pieces are in the total. Kind of like a question, like how many are there? So I'm going to box those in. You're always going to have a total, and you're going to divide it by part or pieces. And the question tends to ask how many part or pieces are in the total. The question will help you figure out which one's your part and then which number is your total. So we're going to start with really easy numbers first. Like if I give you the numbers 8 for the total, and I want you to divide it by 4. Then my question's asking how many pieces, how many of these 4s are in 8 is kind of what I'm asking. And we know 8 divided by 4 is going to give us how many pieces? 2. So I'm starting with really nice, easy whole numbers, and then we'll start throwing in fractions here and do the same thing with the same numbers. If I were to write a story problem that fits this, I could say I have blank squares and I want to divide it by blank. How many pieces will I have? Question mark. And that is a story problem. I know it's only 2 sentences. One of them is a statement and the other one is the question. So I want to go back through this using our numbers 8, 4, and 2. So what's my total? How many squares do I have? I would have 8 squares. I want to divide it by 4. How many, see how it's asking pieces will I have? The question mark helps me identify how I want to label my answer. So I would answer this 2 pieces. And the question mark also helps you identify which one of these numbers is your part, and then the other one would be your total. So we're going to continue practicing that on the next page, which is page 22 in our notes. So go ahead and turn the page. We're going to practice again.